So, when you had your Oculus in the house,
Yeah.
tell me about it. What was it like to have it on and like play with it and stuff?
Yeah, so as I said, I got the DK2 for a weekend.
Yeah.
Locked myself in with it. It was as good as they said.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
It was really quite spectacular. I mean, so I first put it. I said didn't I, that the I could see like a slight pixel mesh and stuff on it.
Oh yeah,
but you still got that kind of presence feel and stuff. But I did eventually get over that. You get over that quite quickly, but you still realise it's kind of an early use it's kind of definitely a development object.
Yeah, sure.
And some of the demos that I used were kind of not that well optimized, so the frame rate wasn't that high, and that's really important in VR because when you're looking like left to right, if it's not like at least 60, it should be around like 90. 60 frames a second, then 90 frames a second, then you just the jarriness of that just makes you feel
sort of judder
ill.
and stuff as you move.
Yeah,
is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, it's just you know if you play like a video game and it's like really smooth, or if you play a video game on like either crap PC or like one that's just
online or something.
And and the frames are just much slower.
Yeah,
you end up getting just a worse experience as a normal video game sat away from a TV. Imagine if that TV's like right on your face,
like all around you. You're sort of in that world.
The world just doesn't feel like it's there because the world doesn't moves in an imperceptible number of frames.
So it was like that then. You had a bit of that.
There was some of that
with some of them.
Some of the demos I used.
Right.
So I tried I tried quite a lot of demos over the weekend, but there were only a few that actually really stuck with me because a lot of them were a bit dodge.
Yeah.
The first one that I found that was really good was the Star Wars one, which I think is called like the Battle of Vendor or something.
Yeah.
It's just on the Oculus Share thing.
Sounds cool.
And I was like, kind of like, okay. And I have to say, the frame rate wasn't awesome in it. It wasn't that well optimized, but bloody hell was it cool.
So I'm guessing you're sat in the cockpit of something.
You're sat in the cockpit of an X-wing.
Oh my god.
You
so fucking cool.
Yeah. You kind of. You actually have the. I think there's like I seem to remember the titles that move away into space.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that happens, and then you sort of kind of fade up into a cockpit, and you're sat in an X-wing cockpit. Okay.
And you can like look around.
And you look around.
Sat in it. You look. What is your? You just you look down. And you're just like a sort of person.
Yeah. You're just that's just holding the joystick.
Holding the joystick. Right. Okay.
And you look around, and you've kind of got all the dials and stuff around, and you're kind of like, oh, what the hell? And then you look up, and there's sort of. You obviously you can realise because I had an Xbox 360 controller, so you can then like fly it around and pull it up and down. It's like, oh, this is weird, and you're flying around, and you don't really notice it until you start getting other objects coming closer to you, like big starships or TIE fighters or whatever. And I remember my like real distinct memory of that is like two things. One of them was coming closer to one of these big starfighters, and just like flying down towards it. Okay. Yeah. I think I might have been chasing a TIE fighter or something, and feeling like I was getting closer to the ground, as if you like I'd feel an object coming towards me, and feeling the like speed as you like pull the X-wing up and sort of fly it along the like turrets on along the edge of this starship, and you almost feel like the velocity, like you feel like you're diving down towards it. Obviously, you have no other input except for your visual input in that, but because the 3D is so convincing,
and you're just immersed in it, you're just immersed in the world. It's almost like an illusion of like G-force and stuff. Like you kind of imagine that you're feeling it.
It's really bizarre.
That's insane.
And so you get like a real rush when you go down towards it. Like, it's so cool. And then the other thing I remember was like dogfighting some X-wings. Okay, some TIE fighters.
Yeah, sure.
And watching like a TIE fighter like fly up and it sort of flies out of your screen as you're chasing it.
Like up.
Yeah, and realizing suddenly that what I hadn't done was try and move my controller to follow it, but I just looked over my shoulder to look up out of the cockpit.
So the X-wing is still, the one you're controlling is still flying, like
flying straight. You look up, you watch this TIE fighter flying like sort of above you to the left, and you just drag this X-wing back over on itself to just taste it. It's so cool.
Oh, fucking hell, that is cool.
Those games, there's going to be like, those are going to be the real best games to start with.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, because obviously it's not reading your hand movements or anything.
No.
So like any game where you actually have to do stuff with your hands, like it does not. That's going to kind of remove you a bit from the immersion, because suddenly you're like, okay, well, I'm just holding in a controller, so I don't actually move my hands around.
Yeah.
Whereas that, because you're just sat in a cockpit, like, and you've got your hands on like a joystick, and you're holding a controller, it would feel like super immersive.
Exactly. You're basically sat more or less in the same position you would be in an X-wing. Yeah, is the key thing.
And sit in like a comfortable chair.
Yeah,
and like,
a more comfortable chair
around in space.
More comfortable than that stupid X-wing. But you can also buy like a joystick as well to make it even more immersive if you wanted to. The Xbox controller I actually found was really good though. Yeah. And yeah, it was awesome. Like those flying games are going to be so cool. There's like one called Eve Valkyrie that's coming out. Yeah. And yeah, I mean that the graphics on that look mental, and it's like in the Unreal 4 engine, and it's that's I cannot wait. We're going to do like a reaction video when I get this thing. Provided I don't run out of money before or something. It's going to be expensive. And because I've used it before, but I'll get it all set up, and I want to put you in it for the first time and film your reaction, because it'll be pretty entertaining.
That's going to be good. Yeah, I want to play that game or like something like that.
The Eve game.
Maybe the Eve game.
I'll find like the perfect demo that I know you're going to be loving.
Just like one where you get to fly around in space.
Yeah, it's going to be wild.
It's going to be by far the closest experience I've ever had to actually flying around in space. Like by far, by miles.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's going to be cool.
Except for there'd be no 0G.
Yeah, but you're flying around an X-wing with simulating high G, so it'd be all right.
Yeah, true that.
What other stuff did you try?
So I tried a few others. There was one called, like, I think it was called Valkyrie V, something like that. Valkyrie V. Not Valkyrie.
The Eve game was called Valkyrie.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was basically, what was it called? Vanguard. It was like, so basically it's just this game where, this was the interesting thing about it was a third person game, not a first person game.
Okay, weird.
Now that sounds weird,
doesn't it? Sound weird.
I'm pretty sure, it was called Vanguard V. Yeah, Vanguard V, I'm pretty sure that was called.
So you have just a character, like a third person game, so it's a character in front of you.
Yeah, it's in space again.
Alright, okay.
And you've kind of got this like, kind of person in front of you. It's kind of a bit sort of a surreal game, as in the character looks like nothing like a human. It's kind of all bright and colourful and whatnot. Right. And you fly it around and kind of dodge. It's kind of like a bit like an endless runner in a way. So there's stuff coming at you in space, and you can fly it up and down, but like with a restriction. Okay, so you can't just like fly off in a totally different direction and just avoid all these things, and you shoot things that are coming in, but you use your head to like aim at them.
Okay.
So you've got like a marker, and you're looking around and firing on like the Xbox controller.
Yeah, but also controlling your character.
Yeah, and with your head. Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
And so you're like firing and using this thing to track stuff, and that. I was shocked how good that was, because I thought that would be rubbish.
It doesn't sound compared to the X-Wing description. It doesn't sound like anything special.
And it wasn't as good as the X-Wing one. Yeah. But what you really got again was that when you look up and like you look at the bottom of the screen, okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, you look down with your Oculus.
Yeah.
And this like thing, the flying thing that you like, the woman or whatever, I can't even remember what it looked like. It was some character flies down, and you get this like rush feeling again. It's very. Right. And because there's so many colours and lots of things flying around, and it's in like really convincing 3D, all the little sort of rubbish things you see in video games, all the little kind of bits of energy and little sprites that are flying around, suddenly look like incredible. Like they just pop, like they just look incredible. It's really really cool,
man.
Really cool.
Do you reckon that this is just because like the early days, the first time you've tried it, and that you'll kind of get like climatized to that kind of stuff, and it'll take more and more to impress you, more and more to give you that sense of like that rush or whatever you're talking about?
I don't know if that will wear off. Yeah. I don't know if that will. It's kind of like.
They're inevitably going to get better. They just will get better. So you probably will, just because you'll keep up to date with it and like be playing like the newer stuff in like 5 years time, whatever. If you were to then play that game again, you'd be like, what the hell is this?
It'd be pretty whack, yeah.
And you wouldn't have that same like feeling of like like that rush, whatever you're describing.
I don't know. I still, because it's a sense of momentum, and you don't lose like your sense of momentum in real life.
Sure, but you might get demos or games whatever that reproduce that sense far better. In the future. Yeah. So by comparison, it's like
that's quite possible.
Yeah.
I mean the long term kind of How we do with VR over the long term is not known. Whether it becomes something that's totally just fades into it's just a gimmick basically, or it's the future. We don't really know.
We don't know.
I feel like that I wouldn't get bored of that experience, and I just want. It's like playing a game of like on a PlayStation. Like, obviously, they've been around for like 10. I've had a PlayStation probably since being quite young.
Yeah.
Since I was 10 or 12 or something like that.
Sure.
And I haven't got bored of playing video games or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean, we said this earlier. My gut feeling is that it is going to be massive.
Yeah,
it's going to be like a step change in like entertainment and stuff.
Yeah,
sure.
So the other ones I played were there was one where I went into the ocean as like a diver.
Awesome.
I think it might go Ocean Rift or something like that, or Ocean VR. And that again, that was cool for a couple of reasons. Mainly one reason.
Yeah.
Which was something I hadn't experienced before in VR. So I went. Obviously, you go in. You're just kind of in like a diver suit thing. You look around. There's like bubbles and stuff, and you kind of it's making that sort of like diving, breathing noise as you breathe through a regulator. And there's some sharks swimming around, and that's cool. And I was kind of like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. I'm underwater. But then it kind of you kind of I don't remember if it tells you or I just did it, but I basically followed like a path or just sort of wandered off into like where it started getting deeper and darker, and that's when I started feeling the thing that, like a fear,
like a genuine fear, like I don't want to go down there.
Yeah, which I had never experienced before in a game.
Yeah,
from something so mundane, because it's quite mundane in the sense of like if you did that on
it's not there's not threat. It's not like thing coming at you, attacking you.
No, and it's not just a horror game. And it's just like if you did that on an Xbox or something on a TV, you wouldn't just be like, oh, let's go down here, there's anything and nothing. But like on here, it felt like I was going like if you've dived.
Yeah.
You go into that.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I know exactly that feeling, and it's a feeling from like being in that situation. You looked over there, you're like, that's a place that I shouldn't go.
Yeah. Or looking over like a drop off or something.
Yeah. The abyss, basically.
Yeah. And you're going down this like sandbank. And I remember thinking, okay, nothing's happening, but I'm worried. Like I'm physically like sweating a little bit.
A bit like this isn't right. I shouldn't be here.
Yeah, and and then
That's mental.
They did something, and something bizarre like came out of the dark, and like I didn't really know what happened. It was really noisy, and I had to take the headset off.
You know what that is? That's appealing to your like subconscious fear of like just the human kind of subconscious fear of just being in a place that you shouldn't be in, like a dangerous place.
I think there must have been
which you wouldn't have if you were sat on a sofa playing a video game, because you know 100% know you're not in that situation. Whereas in the VR, you're tricking your brain and your subconscious into the fact that you are there.
Yeah,
you're tricking yourself that you're there, and that's what you're scared of.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
That was very bizarre. And in fact, on that related note, another one I played was where you put your hands on a keyboard. Okay, your two fingers.
I think you told me about this one.
Yeah, the game is to like keep your hands onto the two shift buttons basically.
Yeah,
and then. The only objective is not to let go of them, and so you sit there and like you're sat in the virtual world. Yeah, your avatar is doing exactly the same. So it's
you
just
see like
a model, a keyboard in front of you with two virtual hands that are held on the shift keys. And you basically just sit in this like dingy room, and like a velociraptor comes in, and it's like terribly animated, and it kind of comes up to you like, oh, that's okay, and then it sort of walks out, and then something else happens. But the one that really got me was from the computer, from behind the computer, the virtual computer. A little spider walks out and climbs over the screen and starts climbing up the virtual arm, and and you feel that like, oh, there's a spider arm.
Like a skin crawling kind of feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And you feel like a little spider's crawled up your arm, and that was the closest I came to letting go of shift. And I'm not particularly scared of spiders. It was just like a creepy looking spider.
Again, it's like appealing to that subconscious like fear that you get purely from being in a certain situation in real life. Yeah, that the VR is emulating.
You imagine like a Blair Witch Project style.
Oh my god!
I don't think I could do it. I honestly don't think I'd do it. I think I'd be too scared. I think I'd wimp out.
Terrifying.
I'd take it off and smash it to pieces because I was like, never again.
Throw it straight out the window.
Yeah, it was cool. Oh, and the last one I'll talk about.
Man, I can't wait to try this shit.
I know. It's
like just talking about it now. I'm getting so excited about it.
The last one I tried of note was this one called like Ethereon or something like that. A bit of a weird name. Yeah, it was cool. And it wasn't very well optimized. It was kind of a bit of a mess. But what was really cool about it was it had a sense of scale that I hadn't really kind of appreciated yet. So it was kind of like a sort of exploration puzzle game, kind of mystery game. And you kind of wake up in this kind of room, small like elevator sort of thing, open the doors, you walk out and you're in this kind of like deep underwater tunnel and like a sort of presumably like an alien world, and which is cool, and it's like glass ceilings and stuff, and there's giant like things like swim over the top of you and like whoo, and you go up and you move some kind of like stone thing, and this was one of those like moments, like a bit like the fear moment or the speed sort of feeling, where I rotated this thing, and in like games where you're kind of, I don't know, chasing some sort of MacGuffin basically, to get something to move to whatever. You're chasing like the crystal skull or something, and you turn some things in like an ancient temple, and you just kind of do it, and something moves on the wall, and you're kind of like, right, I'll go there now. I've solved that puzzle. You move this thing, and you hear a noise of like something moving, and you look kind of like out to the, I think it was the left, the right, and this giant tower, like huge, like just looks like a skyscraper, is just like rotating as you're rotating this kind of like stone tablet,
man,
and
cool.
it's like oh god, I'm doing that, like that's that, which it's just a really bizarre realization, like, oh Jesus, like should I be moving that thing?
It's so fucking massive.
So those are and that was just in one weekend with a bunch of rough demos.
Sounds awesome.
That were all free.
Thinking about those puzzle games, like the games that I was really into when I was probably about 14, 15 or whatever, were the Myst games, and like the whole point of them was immersion. Like they were like super immersive puzzle games. There was never any threat. It was literally just about like exploring these really, really, at the time, really like detailed, like highly high resolution, like really well rendered environments that obviously now look like shit, but that's just the test of time.
But I think
that kind of thing,
those things
in VR would be amazing.
They're good because they're not fast games. No, like they're good because they're a first-person like immersive thing, but they're also good because
you get lost in something like that.
Yeah,
but we got lost in Myst.
Yeah, well, yeah, literally, probably sometimes. But like fast-paced games, kind of like first-person shooters and stuff. Some first-person shooters, it's probably a bit too kind of over the top for VR sometimes. Whereas like a slower kind of exploratory game where any technical limitations and things that are in there, any optimization bugs that are going to inevitably be there, are going to be just that bit less obvious because you're not having
it's not
very
happening
fast
so fast.
Things.
Yeah. That's cool. And certainly like stuff like what you were just describing, where you move something and something moves, or like when you start working out these puzzles, even in the game playing it on a PC back then, it was like, oh shit, I'm doing that. That's mental. Like finally work this thing out. And I can imagine that like being a whole other level of
it's very
just immersive.
It's very
feeling.
impressive.
Yeah.
Did you get? So I on a few of those demos, I said they weren't very well optimized.
Right. And
some of them, I didn't ever feel sick.
Okay.
But this is something that people worry about in VR.
Sure.
But I did feel dizzy after doing some of them. In fact, I came out of some of them, and it's you know when you've been on like a boat for ages, and you sit in a chair and shut your eyes or on your bed, and you feel like there's that wave motion, and you're sort of like, oh, I mean, I kind of like it. You kind of get that after VR sometimes, which is a bit
weird.
Odd. It's just like messed with your brain.
For a long time, or just
not
like
very
a few
long.
minutes or something?
Well, maybe an hour.
Okay.
Of just like not like serious, just like occasionally you'd be like, oh whoa. But that was partly because the games were all screwed up.
Yeah, right.
But I didn't get sick. Some people feel very, very, very sick in VR. We gave it to one of our people in our office. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And
the Google Cardboard thing.
And he instantly felt sick. Like
he's like, I can't do it. Yeah. Yeah. Get rid of it.
You didn't get that?
I didn't get that at all with Google Cardboard, no.
Yeah, so some people will get VR sick, which is going to suck, but...
Is it to do with motion sickness? Is it like if you get like travel sick, motion sick, whatever?
Apparently it's not quite the same.
No? Okay.
As far as I remember. I don't think the guy we gave it to does get travel sick. Anyway, but... I don't think it's quite the same. I don't know how you can predict it's going to happen. But he used a very basic version. Yeah. And most of the people... So at Oculus, they have some people who do get VR sick, very, very sensitive to it. I think their CEO's like super sensitive to VR sickness.
Right. And so probably a good thing ultimately if you're trying to like engineer it out of the product.
So back in the day, they did some testing with Steam. Okay, Steam had come up with this newfangled thing in which they were going to put into VR to try and reduce motion sickness. And basically all it consisted of was, instead of when frames come up onto a screen. So you say you got 60 frames a second. Every 60 times a second, a single frame is generated by the GPU, a still image, and then it's replaced by a new one. Okay, and so for that image pops up on the screen, and then for a split second, it's old because you've moved in 3D space.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's still on the screen, and so the next one comes in and replaces it, and then that's new for an instant, and then becomes old, and then waiting for the next one. What they found is that if you flash the frame up and then make the screen go black until the next one arrives, you don't get motion sick as often.
Wow.
So to the point where
so instead of just refreshing the frames, you're actually flashing a frame up, going black, flashing a frame up, going back, just like that.
But it's happening so fast you can't see it.
It's happening like 90 times a second.
Yeah. And this guy went to.
That's cool.
I think it's I can't remember his name. Brandon. Anyway, he went to Steam to try it out, and basically he's got sick in every single one of their prototypes, like almost like instant. No,
can't do it.
And he put this thing on. It was just like, oh.
I'm fine.
I'm totally fine.
And it looks fine. You can't tell any difference between that.
Any different, no. So they're going to have that. There's a thing called low persistence screens, and so sickness.
That's amazing.
That combined with all like latency.
That's like a shot in the dark. Or did they
no,
know
I don't know how VR. Yes, it was Steam. People came up with it. I don't know how they kind of guessed that might be an option.
There must have been some kind of.
There might have been some studies done, or some things they use in army ones, or like really expensive setups. But certainly that sorted it out.
Yeah,
most of it. There's still like problems with latency and stuff, but essentially when these things come out in 2016, if you use them on the right setup, the recommended like computer setup, you're very unlikely to get sick. So sickness, although people were very worried about it at the start, shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
It will make some people a bit woozy, probably.
Yeah.
But they'll get better over time. And having used the dev kit too, I know I don't get. I could have still used that thing for much longer than I did. So I'm not worried about it myself.
That's good news. That's good news.
You'll be fine.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not that worried about it anyway, because I don't tend to get like. I know you said it's not really to do with it, but I don't tend to get like motion sickness and that kind of stuff. Or like, I guess maybe it's more similar to some people even find in IMAX cinemas that they get a bit weird.
Really?
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. When you have like fast motion, or at least when the point of focus is moving relative to like objects or whatever. Like say you're watching a film of like something being filmed from a helicopter that's like moving around.
Yeah.
People on IMAX screens sometimes find that they get sick, like motion sickness kind of stuff. So I'm imagining it's sort of similar to that.
Like Gravity, you can imagine getting like a kind of. Well, I mean, I
during
got
the movie Gravity.
Yeah, on the IMAX, we watch that in 3D, and you get the vertigo feeling, don't you? So it's not that far off from that feeling, kind of.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm kind of imagining.
That's comparable,
kind of thing, and I don't get that at all. So I wasn't that worried about it.
Oh no, I don't mean sickness. I just mean the general feeling of VR is somewhat similar to like a 3D IMAX, like Gravity. No other real comparison.
Yeah.
It's still not as good as like Gravity doesn't touch it, but
of course, because you're still watching a flat screen.
Yeah, but that was the first time I sort of recognised something that was a bit like being in a Rift.
Badass. It's cool.
Yeah, you sort of have to do that on the proper IMAX, and it has to be with Gravity. Otherwise, because most 3D films just are nothing like it at all. So to help this kind of like immersive feeling, you imagine you've got your headset on.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're
still just sat down with a controller in your hand.
So it's limited. So I had an Xbox 360 controller that in no way mimics your hands. So it is a bit weird when you're sat down and you lift your hands up and you're in like a world that you feel is your body is fake, but your kind of brain thinks part of it's real. And your hands don't pop up or your feet aren't there or whatever. That's like slightly disconcerting. So input devices are going to be really important. Specialized VR input devices are going to be very important. I think there's a couple being developed at the moment one for Oculus, and the Steam VR's got one as well.
The Oculus has got those handheld controllers.
Yeah,
right?
They're both the Steam one and the Oculus one are both very kind of
similar.
Look similar.
Yeah, so they're meant to be pretty good and pretty intuitive. Like they look a bit weird.
They do.
And from what I've heard, like, I remember seeing a video of some like media guys who were trying out Oculus and like the latest developer kit or whatever.
Sure.
And they were just given it, put it on in this room. They didn't have the hand controllers on. and they were just already like immersed in whatever like demo they were in, and like whoa, kind of giggling away like idiots. And then they were just given by the Oculus technicians. They were just handed these like controllers, and they just instantly just sort of knew how to use them.
Oh yeah,
just
I think I've
intuitively
seen
like
that.
picking stuff up and like and like moving stuff around, like controlling stuff.
Yeah, I
and,
think
like,
if you like pinch with it,
pinching
it depresses the buttons that would know to pinch.
So it seems to be that they're quite intuitive. Like they're designed like very nicely to be just an intuitive hand controller.
Yeah,
and it gives you suddenly your avatar, your virtual like person has hands and arms and gestures and picks stuff up.
The PlayStation Move one, I think, which is like which was never designed to be in VR, is just a trigger. I think the Valve one, the HTC Vive ones might be just triggers as well, but apparently that's really effective as well.
Fair enough.
And people playing games like where you pick up a gun and like you can hold out the gun and like to play like a shooter, obviously, and move around within like a certain space. And apparently that feels really cool. And like reloading a gun, like you like press a button, it drops a clip out, and then you use the other controller to like bang the next clip in. Like you pick a clip up, stick it in the gun, and start firing. And it's got that really kind of like
you feel like you're really doing it, like
and like loading a shotgun and stuff. So the input's going to be super important. And I don't think the Oculus is coming out. It's only coming out with an Xbox controller with it. It's actually packaged with an Xbox controller.
All right. I thought it had
it won't initially, but because basically they're just slightly further behind on that development. So you have to buy those later.
Hurry up!
I know.
Sort it out. The thing is, so can you ever see it like a full body kind of immersion where like you move your legs and stuff as well? Like that's kind of, it's hard to really work out how that's going to work, because obviously you don't want to be just like legging it around your house and running into stuff. It's
possible that would happen, and people make their own little VR setups, and that you can get all these sensors for everything, and people are developing those, and there are some.
I've seen some pretty mad stuff that people are developing. Yeah.
What it might mean is the return of arcades.
Okay, that'd be cool.
So like back in the day, go down to Sega Park and like get the light guns out and shoot, like play House of Dead or whatever.
Yeah, but now it's like the VR arcade.
Because no one gives a shit about arcades anymore in most of in the UK certainly, and not to the extent they did anyway.
Oh, absolutely not.
Arcades have died off. Yeah, most of the West, I think.
Yeah.
Or they weren't the same as they were, and so
like video game entertainment's so good in your house
at home. Yeah, but now you could legitimately have a very expensive VR setup that you pay to go and use, and it's a big soft area, and it's basically like Star Trek's holodeck.
Yeah.
Just a huge area that's you wear like a certain bobbles or whatever that track your whole body, and you just go wherever you want.
Yeah, do whatever you play, whatever game you want.
Yeah, like, you just whatever's you pay to visit Mars for a bit or whatever. Like,
you still imagine situations where you like just run smack into a wall and stuff. There.
Well, the that's true. The HTC Vive has, because it's got the laser towers that spray everywhere. When you get close to a wall, a virtual like mesh wall appears in VR,
that's
so you
cool.
know not to go too close to it.
That's really cool.
So you won't have to worry about that because you will see it coming basically.
Yeah, okay, that's badass.